Hello and welcome back to the EMJ PGA podcast. As you can see, this is unconventional settings here yet again. We've actually got the first time in the podcast history, I believe this is episode 32 now. In the first time in the podcast history, we've actually got a producer sat next to me off screen. She's off screen here, and she's produced this podcast for all of you wondering why I'm filming whilst I'm driving. I have not set this up. This has been my producer here, and she's done a fantastic job. If I don't say so myself, we've got a setup. Sorry for the slightly unconventional setup. The producer didn't want to be on camera, so I can't really put it in my usual spot a bit wider. So you're going to have to deal with watching me from this slightly unflattering angle from my point of view. You join me whilst I'm on holiday, to be honest with you. This has not been the most conveniently timed holiday as far as the golfing calendar is concerned, because as you guys know, if you're watching this before the football later on this evening, it's US Open week. It is US Open week. I'm obviously not joined by my fantastic and well-esteemed co-host Ben Hartshorn. I actually need to get in touch with him regarding who his picks are going to be. I'll put that out on social media a bit later on today. Um, but I'm not joined by him. I'm doing it by myself because we cannot go US Open week without giving you a bit of a preview. Um, we've been one podcast a week for the last 3-4 weeks now. Life's been busy, work's been busy, and we could not let that get the could not let that get the better of us this week for US Open week. Um, so here I am. Here I am. There's going to be no fancy editing. There's going to be no. You're just going to see a YouTube video of me talking in the car because we want to get this video up as quick as possible without any fuss sort of being made. So here we are to talk things US Open, Shinnecock Hills, New York, New Jersey. Everything's going on in New York at the moment. We've obviously got the World Cup, which me and Ben somehow have just not spoken about on the podcast properly. We're going to try and tackle that next week, all being well. But the US Open, the final major stateside this year, the next one we will be present for, which we're really, really looking forward to. However, it's chaos week. It's going to be all kicking off this week, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing it. Obviously, you guys hopefully have tuned in to figure out who I'm going to pick, who I am going to talk about today, and all the news sort of stories as you expect me to talk about, or the ones that you expect me to talk about. The first of which we can't not start with the favourite, because the favourite sat on a career Grand Slam. We obviously did an absolutely awful job in the PGA preview talking about Jordan Spieth and his sort of quest for the career Grand Slam. Well, Scotty Scheffler is one win away this week from joining Rory McIlroy, who's recently joined the Grand Slam club, and that would be an absolutely monumental story. That would kind of underwhelm McIlroy's crowning moment if he was to do it so soon. I know he obviously had the same opportunity last year. Well, he didn't have the same opportunity last year because he won the Open last year, but this is his first bite at the cherry at winning the career Grand Slam, and I feel like he's going to be someone to watch out for. I feel like this morning it's cost me my wallet on this little journey over to St Ives that we're on here. I was thinking this morning about how risky it is to just keep writing Scheffler off. I've got a feeling that Ben, when I get his picks, won't be picking Scheffler. That every time you don't pick Scheffler in a situation like this, you take a massive, massive risk because he's looming over every single tournament that he tees it up at the moment. His form is not bad at all. He just hasn't had the wins to show for it this year. You look at his form on the PJ Tour website, and you sort of look at where everyone's finished. I think he's had 4 top 20s in his last 5 starts. And the one where he didn't finish top 20, I think he was like 23rd or something like that. So, I mean, and he's had a second in there, he's had a fourth in there. The guy is, I think he finished second last time he was out, in fact. The guy is all over every single tournament that he tees it up at. And if you guys are having a bit of a flutter on the golf this week, you've got to look US Open, tee to green. I think I picked Scotty Scheffler in our first or second podcast. I think it was our first podcast. We picked the major winners back in January, and I think I picked Scotty Scheffler to win the US Open here this week. The only thing that puts me off about it is the fact that I think there's going to be such a reliance on the putting this week. You'll see in my predictions in just a moment. I'm picking people who are high up in putting statistics so far to this point this year. or at least are very, very competent on the greens and are able to pick up strokes on the green. Because I think the fairways, like Rory McIlroy gave a quite a good report of the golf course for us, so we didn't really need to do much more than that. A couple of weeks back, he sort of said about the fairways being nice and wide. If you miss the fairways, you're going to be punished. So obviously, there's going to be a bit of a priority on fairway accuracy and accuracy off the tee. However, the big defence this course has is the greens and the green complex. It's very similar to Aronimink a few weeks ago. Um, and so I'm not going to pick Scotty Scheffler for the reason that his putter is always the last thing to get hot in his game. His iron play is obviously fantastic, so that means he might be able to access a couple of these pins that otherwise other players in the field won't be able to access. But will he be able to convert? We've already seen the mad videos coming out of the venue so far this week. McIlroy's been posting with Brad Faxon. DeChambeau's been doing his usual bullshit, just basically just talking about um, how thick the rough is, which is fine. That's all well and good. But I think the big thing this week is the greens. And like I said with Brad Faxon, the video with Rory McIlroy, like the wind is whipping across those greens. I've seen people moaning about the fact that 11 could be unplayable this week because of how quick the winds are going to be and how fast the winds are going to be, and how quick the greens are going to be running. I think the USGA are going to have to keep the greens at around 10 and a half on the stimp meter just to keep it playable. I haven't seen the forecast for this weekend, but if the winds get up again, you're going to have to keep those greens relatively slow. And I think those big whipping, not whipping, big sloping, fast green complexes that they've got there at Shinnecock Hills, they're going to need to be monitored, and they're going to need to be just monitored so that the course doesn't become unplayable. And when that sort of thing starts to get spoke about, you just think, is Scheffler going to be the one making these really, really clutch two putts from 70 foot across a massive sloping green? Probably not. Probably not. Is he going to be that much of a good iron player that he kills everybody? Potentially, and that's the risk that you take when you don't pick him. But I just can't see him getting the win this week. I think it'll be interesting. I think he probably wins the FedEx Cup playoffs or something like that and gets himself to a decent tally so far this year. But I can't see it this week for Scotty Scheffler. So he's not going to be part of my picks. And then you come on to other major runners and riders. Obviously, we've had pretty consistent big four when it comes to, or a big three specifically, but then a big four when it comes to major previews so far this year. We've spoke about obviously Scotty Scheffler, then we spoke about Rory McIlroy, then we spoke about Bryson DeChambeau. Now Bryson DeChambeau this week, I think, is coming into the event at 30-1 odds. A previous winner of the event, his form has just not been there at the majors this year. I think a lot's going on off the course, and I think that you can pretty much discount Bryson DeChambeau's chances. Do I think he's going to put in a better showing than he has done at the first two majors this year? Absolutely. But do I think he's going to get anywhere near the top? No, I think he's going to be fighting to make the cut. I think he will make the cut this week, but I don't think we're going to expect to see, and I don't think you can expect to see too much from Bryson DeChambeau this week. Rory McIlroy, what are we going to say about him? What are we going to sort of point to about him? Again, I'm just going to gloss over the people that I think I'm not going to pick this week. Rory McIlroy making some comments this week, again, like he always does. He's very candid, and I sometimes think he can overshare about his thoughts. I've definitely been thinking that, especially since I've been following sort of the quotes from players a lot closer this year, doing the podcast. I don't know. I don't know if I think he's got it in the tank. He obviously carried that weird blister injury into Aronimink at the PGA a couple of weeks back, which was a bit strange. So he went into that with his hands tied. He actually finished the tournament pretty well. I mean, if you remember, he sort of pitched it into the bunker and got really annoyed with that fan on 16 at Aronimink on Sunday. And that was the end of his chances. He would have obviously not got anywhere near to Aaron Rye's winning total, but at that moment in the tournament, you still thought he had a chance. So coming down to the 17th hole of his tournament, he had a chance to maybe pick up a win there in his head. So I actually think that's a really, really respectable effort. But it just felt like he was just too far away the whole tournament, and that's what the best players in the world, you've got to hold them to a higher standard. So for his standards, I think he would have liked to have been closer to winning that. He hasn't really shown his face much on the PGA Tour recently. He hasn't really been playing. He hasn't really been that active, probably for good reason. He's probably scoped out Shinnecock, and he's in it for legacy at the moment, Rory McIlroy. However, I find it hard, even though he did do it at the Masters. I find it hard to believe these players can just turn it on and off on the weeks that they really want to the most all the time. Don't get me wrong, once a couple of years, but all the time, I don't know. Like, if he wins, let's say, at the US Open, he's technically got a 66% win rate so far this year in events that he really, really would have wanted to win. That's incredibly high, and I just don't expect that much of him. So I'm going to discount Rory McIlroy this week. Um, he might be able to beat up the golf course, bearing in mind the fairways are nice and wide. But when the wind gets up, okay, he's a fantastic player in the wind. I'm not saying anything about that. But when the wind gets up, it maybe suits itself to a little bit more players with a little bit more lower conservative ball flight than Rory McIlroy. So yeah, just probably saying the reasons why we're not fancying McIlroy there. And then we come on to other contenders. Jon Rahm, you've got to watch out for Jon Rahm. His short game's absolutely fantastic, and that's something that you've got to really be looking at. I think of all the favourites, and I'll put a little spoiler out there, I'm not going to pick Jon Rahm, but of all the sort of top four players in the world that you could look at and you could sort of give an argument for winning this week, I think that Jon Rahm as a template for a player, I think he's got the most chance of winning this week. He's in good form. He's obviously enjoying himself over there on Live as long as it's lasting, and his short game's obviously immaculate. So you look at Aronimink, you look at how that's set up. It was very US Open-y about a month ago in Philadelphia, and he did fantastically, didn't he? I think he finished. I think he finished joint second, or at least third. I think he was joint second for the week. Um, you've got to fancy Jon Rahm. If the wind gets up, if you need to be creative in and around the greens, if you need to hole clutch putts down the stretch, you're going to fancy Jon Rahm. So I think of all the top players, the top four, let's just call them, and that's being very harsh to players like Matt Fitzpatrick and Cam Young, who have been fantastic so far this year. But the top four in world golf, I think that Jon Rahm has the biggest chance out of all four in terms of a template of a player to win this week. So that's something to bear in mind if you're having a little bet on the events this week over in Shinnecock. But I'm going to stop rambling on now and give my picks. And as I said, we're going to follow it up later on today with Ben's picks. We'll get them off him at some point today. My picks, as we always do for major picks, we are going to give you 3 picks each. We're going to give you an outsider, we're going to give you a sleeper, and then I'm obviously going to pick who I think is going to win this week. So your outsider is going to be someone above 50 to 1 with the bookmakers, someone who I think is going to do well. I always like to try and cover my back with the Live guys and just make sure I give them a bit of respect, because what I do is I always discount them and think, oh, I don't expect much from them, and then all of a sudden one of them's up there with a chance, if not winning on Sunday. So that's what I'm going to do with my outsider pick, because I saw this person was 100 to 1, and I think coming off the back of his last major performance and the changes that he'd made to his team, and we spoke about him off the back of the PJ podcast for good reason. I think he finished 7th. I'm going to pick Cam Smith as my outsider this week. As I said a few minutes ago, I think putting is going to be a massive thing this week. You're going to need to be able to putt well. I've just got an image of the course this week setting up quite forgiving off the tee, like McIlroy sort of spoke about. So therefore, okay, distance is going to be at a premium, but if the wind gets up, you're going to look for someone who's pretty steady off the tee, who's not going to wow you. Iron play is going to be solid, but you're going to need that clutch gene on the greens. You're going to need that ability to be almost cold under pressure. And Cam Smith showed me something last time out. I mean, I literally disregarded him from any sort of big event going into the PGA, and maybe for the last 12 months or so I've disregarded him, but he showed me something. He showed me that he still wants to compete at the highest level. He showed me a fire that I didn't really know was in there, and I think Cam Smith is going to be positive, and he's going to be full of confidence. I have no idea what he's been playing like over on the Live Tour the last few weeks. Obviously we don't follow Live that closely, so we don't really know how he's sort of been playing, but these guys, they don't care about those events. Come on, let's be serious. That all they're doing is looking to get up for these big ones, these major championships. And I think Cam Smith, like Ben said in our PJ review, I think Cam Young's got Cam Smith, even not Cam Young. Cam Smith's got another major in him somewhere, somehow. I think he's got another major in him. So I think Cam Smith is going to be my outsider, my sleeper. So someone who is not getting spoken about much, but I think can easily pick up the win here. With both my sleeper and my winner, I'm picking 2 players who are synonymous with not really getting over the line, not really getting the job done when they've definitely got the games to be able to do so. But that's what I do. I like to pick those players for some weird reason. Ben will probably be on here picking Kepka, picking Scheffler, and picking God knows who above 50 to 1, probably someone who's won about 10 majors 15 years ago just because they know how to win. But I think we're a bit different like that in how we pick players. My sleeper, I'm going to pick Sam Burns. Purely because I think justice is going to prevail. He got so royally fucked over, excuse my language, last year, and me and Ben spoke about that at the US Open at Hazeltine. Um, he got so royally screwed over that I think the golfing gods will look down and they'll go, Sam, you're going to be in with a chance somewhere, somehow, at one of these events. I think I picked Sam Burns to win the Open back in January. So I'm on the right tracks. But Sam Burns is in good form. He had a good run at the Memorial. He's been finishing consistently in that top 20 for about 4 or 5 months now. You know, he's not really out of spell of form where he's been missing cuts consistently. And then again, you look at the template of the player. He's going to play pull cuts off the tee. He's going to make sure if he's missing one side of the golf course, it's going to be the right side of the golf course. He's going to be conservative with his approach. And then his putting's absolutely outstanding. I think he's sixth in strokes gained putting on tour this season so far. You know, I think he's quite up there in terms of 3-putt avoidance, which is quite a big stat. And I think it's something you need to be looking at as far as stats that are going to be important this week. 3-putt avoidance. I think Sam Burns is well in with a shout. So Sam Burns is going to be my sleeper. I think he sits at 33 to 1 currently with the bookmakers. And I think he's someone you should be watching out for, purely off of, as I said, the golfing gods looking after old Samuel Burns. And I think he'll be in with a chance. And for my winner, those of you listening to the podcast, those of you loyal fans to the podcast, and those of you who listen to us ramble on randomly about golf for probably too long each week, you'll know which way I'm leaning as far as this week. I can't get off this player. I cannot get off it. I just think he sets up so well for winning a tournament like the US Open, the Open Championship at one of his home courses, literally the other side of the road from his home course where he grew up. He's just too much. I was there last time the Open was at Birkdale in 2017. The crowd was unbelievable in support for who I'm going to pick to win this week, Tommy Fleetwood. So I'm going to pick him a month prior. I think Tommy Fleetwood gets the job done. His form is impeccable right now. He is playing fantastic golf. He's played fantastic golf all year. Does he have any wins to show for it? No, absolutely. You know, he never seems to. He never seems to. But if you look at Tommy Fleetwood, everyone goes, oh, he can't putt, he can't putt. I think he's 11th in strokes gained putting, which is fantastic. He's always going to be up there, strokes gained tee to green. He's a fantastic player. Say no more. I think he's fifth favourite going into the week. That's absolutely outstanding, bearing in mind you've got players like DeChambeau, you've got Cam Young. I think Matt Fitzpatrick is sort of joint odds with him. I think they're both at 18 to 1 going into this week. I think Tommy Fleetwood gets it done this week. I think it would be a fantastic sort of achievement. Like I said, you'd fear about him on the greens usually. You talk about a template of a player, but he's performed fantastically on the greens so far this week. He's obviously this year, excuse me. He's obviously figured something out, and I think he's going to be my player to win this week. And that would be a fantastic story. I would absolutely love it come Sunday night if I'm tuning in and I see Tommy Fleetwood getting the job done, like I did with Matt Fitzpatrick a few years ago at Brookline. At Thingamabob up in New England. Goodness knows what the course is called. Excuse me. But slipped my mind. But Boston. What's that golf course in Boston? Jesus, where Matt Fitzpatrick won the US Open. But that was a fantastic sort of moment, tuning in, finishing your Sunday. I think I was playing golf that day, and then seeing, like Matt Fitzpatrick is well in with a shout here, and seeing him get the job done ahead of Will Zalatoris. That would be a fantastic. Someone like Xander Schauffele, like if Tommy Fleetwood beats off Xander Schauffele or some American like that to get the job done, that would be a fantastic Sunday evening well spent. So I'm picking with my heart and my head actually this week when it comes to the US Open, and I probably would advise you guys do something completely different because my picks so far this year have been pretty poor. So that's my sort of take on things this week. Hopefully everybody enjoys the golf. Hopefully everybody appreciates the fact that we have made this podcast very last minute. We're not very well put together. As I said, this video is just going to go straight out onto YouTube. So like I said, I hope everybody's kind of enjoyed what I'm thinking ahead of this week. And I hope you've had a chance to watch this before the football this evening, because I know everyone's going to be glued to that and then into the golf tomorrow. So you've got a very short window to be able to actually digest this and then go ahead and watch the golf. But nonetheless, guys, we'll wrap it up there. 21 minutes of me talking US Open. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you enjoy the golf this week. And me and Ben will be back early next week to review all the action. We love talking the US Open because we know some mad shit's about to happen. Like, we know some rules officials going to get involved. We know some players going to ask for a drop at some weird moment because he's been completely screwed over by the lie of some description off the fairway, or some mad stuff's happened. Does the wind get up and make the course unplayable? Do they need to water the absolute living life out of the greens to keep it within reason? Are players going to lose their head with the setup? Is Brooks Koepka gonna sort of come good after spending years away on live? Is Scheffler going to complete the career Grand Slam? All questions ready to be answered in just 4 days. We'll look forward to watching it, and we will catch you all after it's all done. We'll catch you guys on Tuesday to review all the action. Until then, we'll catch you next time.